morning. Hello, hello. I am online. I'm streaming. Things are looking pretty good in terms of bit rate, I think. So, sorry I'm a little late getting started. I had to warm up my coffee and check in with some people upstairs. So, I'm just here chilling. I'm letting a few people give you all a little bit more of a chance to get online and connected and everything. As you're arriving, just a couple of reminders. There's the new, first of all, on Monday we talked about it, the new flexible grading option. This is something that you will be hearing more about, I think. It's something that the nuances of it are still being worked out, but the basics of it seem pretty good, which is that if you are at risk of, if there's a class that you feel you're at risk of getting a poor grade in, or that you would rather just kind of not worry about the grade in, then I think the flexible grading option is something that is going to make sense to a lot of people. And that's something to, of course, consider. I still recommend for this class the defaults to keep the letter grade is probably a good idea, just because I probably am going to give a lot of A's, because that's what I usually do in this class anyway, but lots of A's and B's. But that's going to be better for you than a credit grade in a lot of cases to help your GPA. It's a case-by-case decision. I'd be happy to talk about it with you if you have questions about your specific situation. But I think in general, for most classes, the default grade is probably still going to be okay, but that's the letter grade is probably the good default. But then the flexible grading option with the credit, no credit, and the P19, that's a better fallback than pass-fail, because pass-fail still has the risk of failing. And I wonder if maybe the registrar will just say do away with pass-fail and replace it with the flexible option, because it's so much better than the pass-fail option. So I don't know. We'll see what happens there. But yeah, great. So looks like we've got 7 viewers on the stream right now, so I think that's good enough to get started. Today I'm going to be going through some things with text analysis, and if you're just joining me, you can see that if you look up at the history in Slack, you can see we went through this a little bit at the 10 o'clock hour, but I'm going to do the same thing again. So the point of this is to give you an introduction to text analysis. Excuse me. For the digital methodology project, your job is to choose one of several modules. Text analysis is one module you can choose, but I want everyone to understand text analysis, and so that's what I'm going to take you through today. You may choose to work on it later. You may choose to do a project around text analysis, but you don't have to. You may choose something else, and I'll spend time on Friday and then Monday and then the next Wednesday doing similar kinds of introductions to other digital methodology modules. So you can wait and decide later if you'd like to, that's fine. I just want to make sure you understand what each of these things is and how to do the basics, and then start thinking about a project around it. So I don't know if you can hear it. Somebody's mowing nearby or weed eating. I don't know. My neighbor over there he has a wood chipper, and he's been chipping a lot of wood, I guess. That might be what I'm hearing. Oh, that sounds like a leaf blower to me. I don't know, a lot of noises. That's okay. So there are a couple tools I'm going to be using for this, and part of what I'm doing here is, of course, to introduce you to these tools to show you how they work and what kinds of things you can do with them. But to do this, let's come up with a actual kind of. Hang on a second. I lost my tab there, but that's okay. I'm going to reset this window anyway. So I can show them to you, but I think it's better if you help me build the model or build the experiment. So that's what we're going to do here. This will be a little bit of interactive programming, I guess. So this is a tool that I find really useful to introduce text analysis. There are other tools, and there are ways you can do this yourself in programming, but Voyant is a way to do, it automatically does a lot of things in a decent way, and it's a good way to get started. Even if you're planning to do something more sophisticated, Voyant is a great way to just find out if there's something interesting there in what you're talking about. So let's just try this. I did this with a 10 a.m. section, and so hopefully this will be similar. I won't have to redo this entirely, but let's think about some novels. When we do text analysis, oftentimes People do that with literary texts like novels. You don't have to. Anything that you can think of as a big bag of words, you can put into this tool Voyant and then see some things about it. So that might be song lyrics, or it might be text messages, or essays you've written, or just anything that you can think of as words. Um, Transcriptions of speeches, like anything. But literary texts are kind of easy to come by, and also kind of easy to think about in terms of the kinds of questions that text analysis can answer. So let's think of this right now. Let me pose, I'm going to type this question here in Slack. Okay, so let's try something. Let's get a list of 10 or so novels. What's the first novel that comes to mind off the top of your head? So preferably things from the 19th century. So we're just gonna come up with a list. Okay, well, Cloud Atlas, okay, interesting. That one's probably too new. We need to find things that are old enough that it will be possible to find a plain text version of them. So Cloud Atlas will be challenging, just because it's too new. Okay, so I'm going to keep track of these in a little note document here. Okay, so we have Pride and Prejudice. We have Frankenstein, of course, good. Let's get a few more. And these don't have to be great novels, they don't have to be anything, really just, I think by thinking of a novel, you are going to come up with pretty common ones. Harry Potter's probably also going to be too hard, Tristan, to find. Metamorphosis might be too new also, but we'll look. All right, my goal is going to be, I need to be able to find a plain text copy of these, and some of these will be harder if they're newer, because to find plain text will likely mean violating copyright, which is fine. I don't mind doing that, but it just means it takes a little bit more work. Oliver Twist, definitely, that's a good one. Definitely I will be able to find that one. Let me give you all some thumbs ups in here to show you that I've got these. Okay, Dracula, definitely, good one. Sherlock Holmes. Well, which Sherlock Holmes? Let's see. Let's do Hound of the Baskervilles, because my daughter just started reading that. Michaela. How about, I'll add that here. So because there's lots of Sherlock Holmes novels, like the 5 or 6, and then there's all of the short stories, so it's a lot of things. But Hound of the Baskervilles is a good one, and it's one that my daughter is reading right now, so that's a good one. That's on my mind, I guess. 1984, also too new. Brian, you're too 20th century, Brian. But I'll look for Metamorphosis, definitely. This is probably good, so I've got 5. Sorry. Yeah, well, we can look, but it may take a little bit more work in this case. Yeah, the complete Sherlock Holmes, that's a good one. I mean, that's a collection, I think, if it's the same one I have. But there's several different collections, but anyway, we'll go with Hound because it's easier. Or because, I mean, it's up to me because I'm the one in charge here. Okay, so I know you're still seeing just my browser window. I'm going to show you where we can find, hopefully, a lot of these. So Gutenberg.org is a website that hosts and publishes public domain works or anything that's free of copyright. And they don't have everything in it, but they have a lot of things. Since I went through this already with my 10 a.m. class, HuckFin, okay, sure, we can do HuckFin. I already have some of these downloaded, but some of these I do not have, like Huckleberry Finn. I'm adding these to my notes here, so this is probably good. Okay, so here's what I'm going to look for. So I'm going to see if I can get all these. I do already have Pride and Prejudice and Dracula, I think. So let me look for a couple more. Let me look for Frankenstein. And the way this works, you can just search for the title of a book or an author. And here it is. Now, whenever we're doing text analysis, there are several different versions of a document. So let me make sure I explain what the differences are here. before I download them. There's an online HTML version, which is going to look nice and be easier to read if you're reading it right here, and this is where you're reading it. Excuse me. There's also an EPUB or a Kindle version if you're going to be looking at this on a Nook or a Kindle that you can download. Those are all good for reading, but they're not as good for analysis. The plain text UTF-8 version is the one that is the most plain vanilla ASCII text, the simplest version of it, and that's the one that we need for what we're doing here. So I'm going to save this one, Control S, and I'm going to put this into a folder here, making this one here. Oops. And you can't see everything I'm doing here on my desktop. This is just, I'm saving this document as plain text, and if you're doing this as well, you'll need to make sure that you're saving it as plain text. It looks a little different, like the actual steps and buttons you click on will be different for your browser and for different operating systems. Okay, I already have Pride. Let me see if we can find Kafka in here. Let's try it. Ah, we do have Metamorphosis. Excellent. Great. So, Metamorphosis. Okay, and what else? Oops, I don't want emoji. Oliver Twist. Let's see. Should be able to find that. Yep, here we go. This is Oliver Twist, I think. Dracula I already have. Hound of the Baskervilles. Again, just getting all the plain text here. And let's see, Huckleberry Finn. So that's those there, and then I already have the other ones. Let me just try something for 1984, just to show you what kinds of things you might need to do if you have a newer book, like the same with Harry Potter. So this is literally what to do. Look for the full text, and Okay, this looks a little sketchy. I mean, okay, so it's all here, but it looks like it's broken up by chapter, probably so that you get to see all of their ads on this website, including these sneaky download links, which are not really download links, those are ads or tricks. Planet ebook can be, okay, well, I'm a little suspicious of this document, but I'll try it. This is the kind of thing, like, if you're nervous about a download and you would rather not take the risk of something, then let me know. I can try to, maybe I can take the risk for you. Let's see if this works. So this says it's a PDF of 1984. Because it's such a popular book, it is certainly possible. Looks like this website also has it chapter by chapter. Okay. One thing I've noticed, I just set this new computer up, and I've noticed it does not always do a great job of actually opening things with the right software, so that may be why that hasn't opened yet. Let's see. Okay, excellent. So this actually does work. You can't see the window I have up here, but it does look like the full text of it in PDF, and it's the right kind of PDF. Okay, so I am actually going to do. Yeah, I have time. This will take a little bit of work, I think. But let me see if I first of all. If I have the right software to extract text. I do. Okay, great. So let me. So this whole process I'm about to do here, this is because I was able to find an okay copy of 1984 and because I have the software to extract text from it. This is a step that you often won't have to do, and that really would only happen if you if you're trying to look at a newer kind of book. Let's see. Trying to see if I can. Okay, this actually. I'm just trying out my different things in my OBS settings here to see what I want to show you. How can I show you the whole? Sorry, I'm using seeing me experiment here in real time with OBS settings. Can I not? Oh, screen capture. That's what I wanted. Okay. So this will look weird for a second, but it should be okay. All right, this is all because Brian said 1984. So anyway, so this is a Linux computer, but you probably have a very similar tool, a set of tools if you have a Mac computer, and you can get them on Windows too. So this is the terminal here, and thanks. So let me get into this here. I mean, if you don't know what I'm doing here in the terminal, it's fine. But I'm going to try to just run this program called PDF to text on 1984 and see if it works. And if it works, it should just give me a plain text version of this document. So it gave me something. Let's see what it looks like. Hey, that's pretty good. Okay, great. So this is plain text. Nice. So we got 1984, excellent. So a couple other things we need to do on these, and since you have my whole screen here and my whole desktop, I can show you them here. It might get a little laggy. I hope it's not too bad. But what I'm going to do is take a look at Frankenstein.txt. Each of these documents that I downloaded from Project Gutenberg have a header in them, and they also have a license at the end. And I don't want either of those included in these documents because I'm getting ready to use these I'm getting ready to analyze these programmatically. So I only want to analyze, Arthur Conan Doyle's words or George Orwell's words. I don't want to analyze the legal stuff here. I mean, it's part of the text document, but it's not what I want. So let me get these out and then. Really long. There it is. Try to get all the way to the bottom of this document. You can do this kind of cleaning out with a computer program also, but sometimes it's easier just to do it. Takes more time to write the program than to just go through and delete the things I know I don't need. Really glad we found metamorphosis. Interestingly, this is a translation with the copyright. Okay, so here's a question I'm going to post in here. So while I'm organizing these files, yes, from German. Here's a question. Of these works, which do you think has the most complex or diverse vocabulary? In other words, which author uses the most different words? So this is just like off your top of your head, off of your knowledge of these books or whatever else you have to go by. Which of these authors do you think is the most wordy, I guess, or the most, which do you think has the biggest vocabulary? This is the kind of thing that we're going to be able to test with a computer program. So that's why I'm asking you to first of all think of what what your sense of this is. Okay, then we also had Pride and Prejudice, Dracula from the other class. Let me get those. Okay, so I think I've got them all here. Let's see. Pride and Prejudice, I have Frankenstein, Metamorphosis, Oliver Twist, Dracula, Hound, there it is, and 1984, and okay, great. So seriously, I'm curious what you think. Type your answer in here. Who do you think has the most diverse vocabulary? That's an interesting question because it is the kind of thing that a computer program can do. Computers are good at counting, so we can count those very easily. And also vocabulary density, this is the more technical term. Vocabulary density is also a proxy for reading difficulty. So that might be give you a sense of when you would have read this in a school setting. So let me drop this screen capture off of OBS so it's not so clunky. So yeah, what do you think? So we've got one vote for 1984. Maybe. Yeah, I think 1984, of course, Orwell invents words in that book, and so that's one reason why it might have a higher vocabulary density. So I saw Cassie and Michaela typing too. And Ian. So Oliver Twist, okay. Good. So we're kind of voting here. So we've got a vote for 1984, a vote for Oliver Twist. So while you're voting, let me show you a little bit about Voyant tools. The way this works, you can upload your own text into it, which is what I'm about to do, or you can open up a corpus that's already loaded. A corpus is just a generic word for a bag of words. So if you wanted to look at all of Shakespeare's plays at once, you can look at them here, and then this is the kind of thing that we're going to be able to do with those novels I just downloaded. So these are 5 different windows with different visualizations and analytics on each of these books. And it's kind of a lot to look through, and honestly a lot for me too. And there's also quite a few other possible visualizations that aren't here yet, but if you click on these little Windows icons, you can change whatever tool or visualization is actually showing up in a particular window. So it's pretty convenient, but it's still like, it's still a lot. Okay, so we've got 2 votes for 84 now from Darlene now, and Dracula is a pretty bizarre book. So two for Dracula, I think. Okay, great. Let me show you a little bit more around here, and then then we'll try it out and see. So up on the left, this is a word cloud, or it calls it a cirrus view, and that's a pretty conventional way of visualizing text or thinking about a big chunk of text. In the middle, we've got the reader, which is just kind of a view into whatever document we're on right now. This total set in this particular corpus has 37 documents. These are, I guess, the 37 plays of Shakespeare. And over here on this right window, you can see the x-axis is organized for each of those plays. These are also, I think, organized chronologically. So if we are interested in how a particular word is used over time in Shakespeare's plays, we can see it by isolating like that, or by searching for a particular thing here and then seeing where it occurs. Obviously the word Romeo shows up most frequently in the play Romeo and Juliet, so not a big surprise there. But sometimes things might be surprising, and this is a way to very quickly search all those documents and then very quickly see how different they are in terms of various things. So this is a preloaded corpus, but you can load your own. So I'm going to load the corpus of all those novels that I just downloaded, and then I'm going to send you a link to that corpus. Now you could, of course, try this yourself, but I found that Voyant Tools, the server, gets bogged down if I have a bunch of students try to use it at once. But I think if I upload a corpus, I can send you a link to the corpus, and then you can analyze it the same way I am in Voyant Tools. So let me send you this let me do this first, and then I'll send you a URL for this corpus once it's uploaded and processed. So it goes very quickly actually to process these. All right, great. So this, if you look in the URL here, it's voyanttools.org, and then a question mark, and then corpus equals, and then there's this long token here that identifies this unique corpus. So let's see. Let's check it out. So you should be able to click that link that I just put in Slack and access this corpus the same way I am, and do a lot of the same things that I'm going to do with it. Excuse me. So looking through this, we can already tell a few things about it. We're looking at 820,000 total words and almost 25,000 unique word forms. So that's a rough approximation already of where we are with that. But let's show a few other things that we can determine about this. If you look in the word cloud, said and know are very much the most frequently occurring words. And that's maybe not too surprising because these are all novels. And in novels, people tend to talk to each other, and dialogue tends to be marked with said. Like, it's all over Mrs. Thingamy said, the surgeon at last. As you can see here, when you click on a particular word, it highlights it over here in the context view, and so you can see where it shows up in a particular corpus. And then by looking at this, we can actually see that among all of these, it looks like Hound of Baskervilles has the highest frequency of occurrence. This is a frequency chart here, so it's not just the most raw occurrences. The reason the frequency is important is that if it were the raw occurrences, then whichever book was longest would just end up with the most occurrences. But in this case, it's interesting that, actually no, this is searching for the word man. Let's try said here, and this might give us a sense of which of these novels has the most dialogue. So it looks like maybe Oliver Twist has the most dialogue. Of course, there are other ways an author might indicate that someone is speaking besides using the word said, but if we use that as a proxy for dialogue, then that's probably a reasonable guesstimate, and it's probably telling us that perhaps Oliver Twist has the most dialogue among all these. So, interesting. Okay, so this is the kind of thing that, again, it's because it's based on a number, it's a count. This is the kind of thing that a computer can do that can help us understand these texts a little bit better. Okay, so other views. You can also see where in the documents this is occurring with this little sparkline graph down here. You can see that it's more or less consistent throughout Hound. As you hover over it, you can see which of these squares is which. Dracula, it's a little bit lower, but a bit more concentrated near the beginning. So that's kind of interesting. So yeah, you can kind of see where you are right now in the document. If you click on a word here, you can see, you know, if you click on it here, it gets highlighted in all the other views. So that's what, you know, birth is the word here that I just clicked on, and now it shows up in all these other ones. So these are kind of interlinked, and sometimes keeping track of how they're interlinked is a little tricky. But yeah. So has anyone figured out the vocabulary question yet? It is in here. It's down here on the left. So down here on the left is the information we were interested in. So in terms of document length, it tells us that Dracula is the longest, Metamorphosis is the shortest. I think I'm not surprised by that, but that's what we now know. And in terms of vocabulary density, Metamorphosis is the highest, and Pride and Prejudice is the lowest. This is the density for Metamorphosis is very high, actually, 0.11. And Pride and Prejudice is, I mean, it's the lowest here, but that's pretty average. Words per sentence, that could be another way we think of, you know, complexity here. And Metamorphosis having an average of 28 words per sentence that's very high. Hound of Baskervilles has the lowest average words percentage. I guess that's pretty reasonable. Maybe because of all the dialogue and people talking to each other, you know, you have short, punchy sentences. It's also, Hound of Baskervilles is written as a, you know, it was published in a magazine. It was meant to be easily read by everybody. So that's interesting. So distinctive words, these are, so I mean, the computer program behind this doesn't know what words are or who people are or anything like that. What it's identified here, though, is that for these 8 books here, it's pulled out a word, and you notice names are counted as words here. It's pulled out a word that it has recognized as occurring with an unusual frequency. So given the fact that these are works in English, there's a certain range of words that are going to show up in them, like said and no and man and Mr. and common time and way. These are just regular English words, and yet there are other words in here that are showing up more frequently in these particular works, and they're meant to be, what we can take from this is that these are distinctive words. Sometimes these are proper nouns, sometimes these are, key from, just place names or character names. A good way to get a sense of a book sometimes. Okay, so this is Voyant Tools, and let's see. There's a few other things I wanted to show you about it. Like if you like a particular view, if you find this particular cloud interesting, for example, you can make some changes to it to adjust it. So first of all, let's try these out. So if you click on Define Options for this tool, you can change what it calls the stop words. These are words that are going to be excluded from this list. So if we recognize that the word said just shows up so much that it's really not meaningful to see it there, we can just take it out. So we can add that to the list of stop words. So now said is not going to show up anymore. And then you can decide whether or not to apply that globally, but I will here. Let's take off said, let's take off no, what else? Man. Good. Time. I mean, these are all pretty common words. So the fact that they show up frequently in the word cloud doesn't really tell us much about the text. That's what I'm getting at here. Like. So this won't change the count in terms of vocabulary density, I don't think, but it will change the cloud view. So we can still see that Mr. is a very common word, and that's, maybe gives us a sense of the formality of things, but that's also, like in Pride and Prejudice, that's how characters refer to each other, like Mr. Darcy, right? So that's, or Mr. Bennet. So that's not too surprising that that's more popular. It is interesting that that's much more popular than Mrs. And I wonder if Miss is already in the stop list, because obviously there are lots of women in Pride and Prejudice talking to each other and about each other using their formal titles. So you can make adjustments. I think the one thing I find confusing about Voyant Tools is this little iconography up here. So it's this on-off button that means to change settings. It's the window-looking tool to change to a different visualization. Some of these are really abstract, and I don't totally understand what they're doing. I don't get that one, for example. What's another one? Text arc looks pretty cool. Let's see what this one is. Loom. Yeah, that looks pretty cool, but I don't really know what to do with it. That's the thing with a lot of these. Let's see, what's another one? Terms radio, what is that one? Yeah, I don't really get this one either. I find that building my own tools helps me understand a visualization a lot better than if I were to look at someone else's. So, it's like taking the frequency occurrence thing and then sort of representing it like a sine wave, maybe? I don't know. That's interesting. I never really looked at this one before. This is a fun one, the Dreamscape one, where it tries to do geolocation on things. I don't know why it's called Dreamscape, but what it tries to do is find locations and then kind of map you through them. And so you've got London and Birmingham, but if you'll notice what looks to me like there's Jamaica. So we're in Oliver Twist still, I think. But you notice, like, I think they're picking up Birmingham, Alabama. And Ba, it thinks is a location too, I guess. So you can see what it's doing here in the top, but it's kind of surreal. I feel like it's not totally explanatory, but kind of neat looking. Well, if you like one of these views, this one may not work for exporting because it's an interactive or animated. But usually you can click on Export View and then get a snippet of it. So this will let you embed this somewhere else, just like you would embed a YouTube video or like your Timeline.js thing. I find it more reliable though to export a PNG of it. So let's see if this will work. It may not work with this particular visualization. Yeah, it looks like it's not. Looks like it's frozen. Well, that kind of worked. And so this is the PNG that I created. This is an image, and what I'd recommend is you can change the scaling on this, by the way, but save the image and then upload it somewhere. That's the safest way to get a copy of this, and make sure that you can refer to it later. You can also link to that when you embed it, or when you link to a particular visualization by itself. That is nice, but the risk is that it may stop working. So this is where, if you wanted to just view this cloud, if I can get this here, if you wanted to just view the cloud in its own URL by itself, so this will just be the cloud in a much larger view. Like, this is easier to work with because it's a lot larger, and you can work with it and understand it a lot better by playing with it. But also, you can share this link to someone else if you just want to share the corpus, or if you want to just embed it in your blog post or whatever. So that's that. That's what you can do with this. So in terms of the kinds of projects you might be interested in doing, this is a literary example, very much a contrived question in this case, and not super meaningful, really. People have found it interesting to compare works by a single author, like all of the Harry Potter novels, or look at, I have a student working on a project right now where she's looking at Harry Potter novels, but then looking at Harry Potter fan fiction that people have written, and trying to compare them stylometrically to understand how different fan fiction writers have attempted to adapt their writing to sound more like J.K. Rowling's. Pretty interesting hypothesis, and so I'm interested to see what she comes up with. This is one you may have seen because it's pretty widely circulated. This is a website called pudding.cool, and they make these, what they call visual essays. But this is also just a data-driven text analysis project where they've taken rap lyrics and just run them through the same kind of question we did, looking at, in this case, their first 35,000 lyrics, and counting the number of words, right? I mean, they didn't do this manually. They had a computer program do this. And then they came up with this cool way to visualize it. But the visualization is kind of secondary to the analysis. They did the analysis first. So it's interactive, so you can click on somebody. And I think the interactive part might not be working totally well in this browser. I feel like you used to be able to see it pop out whenever you click on them. I noticed you can search for, and like even the search doesn't seem to work, but you can still see the findings. Oh yeah, well this part works. You can focus just on Wu-Tang if you want to do that. So that's something that's a more, I guess, applicable kind of thing, because if you appreciate this kind of music, you might understand from this analysis why you appreciate a certain artist or not, right? You might be able to be like, or you might be able to draw general conclusions about how the 2000s, if you look at it, kind of led, or that many of these artists that were having a higher vocabulary were associated with the 2000s, and so you kind of see this surge going up that way. So interesting ways to analyze this particular set of culture. This is the kind of thing you might do for your project, although this is a pretty big scope. This is a project with a bigger scope than you may have time to get to through yours, and that's fine, but this is the kind of thing that people do with text analysis. They don't just do literature. Okay, so the helicopter going by. So that was kind of a quick introduction to text analysis, a pretty hopefully gentle overview of working with Voyant tools. One important thing to keep in mind if you're going to be doing stuff with Voyant tools is that your first step is to get a plain text copy of the documents that you want to work on, the files you want to work on. If they're a PDF, then you may have to do something like what I did to 1984. If you're not sure how to do that, or if you get stuck on something, let me know. I might be able to help, or I might have a tool that I could use. But the best case scenario is just to find plain text, right? So plain text could be like you found it, like I showed you with Voyant tools, or if you're looking for song lyrics, AZ Lyrics is good. There's others, but let's just take a look at Bob Dylan. So if this is the song you want, then you can just select it. That's a long one. Like that, and then copy it, and then paste this into a text editor. Now the text editor you paste it into should not be Microsoft Word or a Google Doc. It should be a plain text editor. So I use something on this computer called gedit, but on a Windows computer you'd probably use Notepad. On a Mac computer you'd probably use TextEdit, as long as you've set TextEdit into plain text mode and not RTF mode. I also like to use Sublime Text. I don't have that on this computer yet, but I need to get that. So there is a process there of kind of cleaning it out and making sure that what you have is the right kind of thing. I do not believe, I'm not sure, but I don't think Voyant Tools can handle a PDF automatically or a Microsoft Word document automatically. Although I do have a PDF now, so let me, where did I put that? I think I threw it away in the trash. Well, anyway, I'll try it later. Anyway, so there is that sort of first step of figuring it out and cleaning it up to begin with. I noticed that I'm running about 40 minutes, so this will probably be a good time to start wrapping it up. Do you have any questions? Oh, I just noticed my stream has a weird extra layer in it. That's because I was playing around with window capture. Sorry about that. That was confusing. You didn't need to see my folder, my desktop folders. Okay, so yeah, like I said, I'll be wrapping it up in a few minutes. So any questions you want to see answered on the stream, this is your chance to get them in. Otherwise, I'll be back on Friday with another overview. I might do digital journalism on Friday. But again, the point of this at this stage is I'm trying to demonstrate different things you can do for these methodology modules, and you're still trying to decide yourself what you think is the one you want to work on. Out of coffee. Almost out of coffee. It's cold. Kind of gross. Okay, so I'm not seeing any more questions, so I hope that was clear and interesting or somewhat informative to go through all that. If you, of course, if you need anything, if you have any questions, you know how to reach me. I'd be happy to walk you through some parts of this process if you'd like to work on this and you were unclear about different things. So just let me know. Yeah, so yeah, have fun checking things out, I guess. Also, don't forget to get your digital archaeology project in if you haven't yet. A lot of people still haven't turned that in. It's not due per se, like I'm not going to penalize you for getting it in late, but if you haven't done it yet, you may get behind as we start moving on to other things. So I would encourage you to do it soon if you have any, if you can. Okay, great. Well, I'm going to shut down the stream. So thanks for watching. Have a good afternoon.